everyone, my name is Professor Particle and I am a sap for science. That just means I really love science. Today I'm going to take you on another exploration into the forest and we're going to look for some trees and stumps and logs. Make sure you're prepared for being outside in the forest by bringing a hat, some water, and maybe some supplies. Things like a magnifying glass, a notebook and a pen so that we can draw and write about all the things we see, and maybe you even have a book about identifying trees. After we find some cool trees, I'm going to show you a way to figure out how old they are. Trees come in two main types. Some have leaves and use flowers to spread their seeds. Those are called deciduous trees. Deciduous trees are the ones that have leaves that change color in the autumn and in the winter and fall to the ground. I'm going to use my book and try and figure out what kind of tree it is. This is a sick alder, and remember, it's deciduous, and one of the ways you can tell is because it has big green leaves. Let's go find another type of tree. Some trees have needles instead of leaves, and they spread their seeds from cones instead of flowers. These trees are called coniferous trees. Coniferous trees mostly stay green all through the year, even in the winter. There are a lot of coniferous trees in this forest. This is a hemlock. It is a coniferous tree. A lot of trees in our forest get really big because they're really old. This tree is pretty small. It's pretty young. One thing that both deciduous and coniferous trees have in common is that they both have tree rings. Tree rings, or growth rings, is how you tell how old a tree is. Every year a tree grows, just like you, but I can't tell how old you are just by looking at you. So sometimes people will measure your growth against a wall. But trees make tree rings. They measure their growth all by themselves. Every year a tree produces 2 tree rings, or growth rings. There's a light one in the spring and then a tinier dark one in the summer and fall. That means if we want to know how old it is, we can just count the dark rings. So we'll know the age of the tree when it was cut down. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This tree was 9 years old. There's a couple things that you can notice about growth rings. The middle of a tree has a dark center. That's the heartwood. Just like how we have a heart inside of us, a tree has a heart inside of it, the heartwood. It's filled with sap and it keeps the tree standing up nice and strong and straight. The lighter wood is called the sapwood. It sends the water and nutrients to the leaves or needles. The rings will be bigger if the tree gets more water that year and smaller if it gets less water that year. How intriguing is that? Okay. Hey, now that we've learned all about tree rings or growth rings and deciduous or coniferous trees, it's time to do an experiment. For our experiment today, we're going to actually figure out how old a tree is. For this experiment, You're going to need a park or a forest, somewhere where there's trees, a notebook, a pen, and maybe a magnifying glass. Let's get started. While I was counting, I was able to see the heartwood, and I was able to find one year where there was a lot of water. There was so much growth that year. For the next part, you're going to actually draw in your little notebook what you saw and what you counted. Here, I've labeled the heartwood, the sapwood, and the bark. This tree that I drew was 99 years old. Wow, trees sure are cool. Next time you're out in the forest, take a look and see if the trees around you are deciduous with leaves or coniferous with needles. There is so much more to learn about trees, but for now, I think you should go out and have some fun counting tree rings to see how old those trees are. When you're counting tree rings, see if you can figure out if there are some years where there was more water or less water. I hope you had fun exploring forests and learning all about trees and stumps and growth rings with me today. Remember, I'm Professor Particle. I'm probably a real scientist, and I'll see you next time.